بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. نسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجه الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Inshallah ta'ala, we welcome you to another gathering of your favorite program online, the Black Imams Roundtable. I am your needy servant, Amin Muhammad, and below me, but really above me, the great Imam of the Boombat, Imam Faheem Lee. And to my left, our beloved Imam and distinguished honored guest, Imam Dawood Walid. We are here to talk about a very important subject tonight, which is Futuwwah and raising men, boys into men, and sacred manhood. Inshallah, tabarak wa ta'ala, this connects in a very significant way to conversations that we've had over the last few weeks on the Black Imams Roundtable. And excuse me for the subject switch. Actually, this was supposed to be the subject for this week, but as I am human being, I am from Al-Insan, given to Nisyan. I forgot. I'm sorry. But alhamdulillah, one of the things is when you have your own platform, you can make the adjustments. And after all, we're black. We can just do a balance back pass through the legs, sky hoop, and somebody just got to catch it. So we throwing y'all an alley hoop. Don't let it go out of balance. Catch that thing, right? So, inshallah, we remind you also, as is usual, tonight I want to do something different quickly. Tonight, before we go and get further ahead, I would like us to reach our goal, our weekly goal that we have every week on the Black Imams Roundtable. I would like us to take care of that first. So everyone who's tuning in, make your donation. And we're coming live from Africa, right? So please go ahead and make your weekly contribution.
I can barely hear you.
We can get started. I know you're in Africa. That's why you can barely hear. Internet is very, very slow.
From the Republic of Cameroon.
Sorry, Imam Dawood. This is how we do it. You're used to it. Can you hear me now?
Give me 1 second.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right. So, inshallah, tonight's topic is on Futuwwah. So I'll give to my fellow Imam, Faheem, Imam of the Boombat, to have a few opening words, inshallah, before we get into the meat of our subject. Go ahead, Imam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawm ad-din wa ba'd. We'd like to welcome you all again to the Black Imams Roundtable. Your favorite broadcast on Tuesday night, prime time. We in the building. Alhamdulillah. We're here with our esteemed panelists, Imam Amin. Imam Naeem is transmitting live from the motherland, the Republic of Cameroon. And we have our brother, our Imam Dawood Walid. Alhamdulillah, he's going to be discussing his book, Al-Futuwwah, inshallah ta'ala. And as Imam Amin mentioned, let's try to reach our goal early. Many of you are regulars, and you are our people, our go-to people. You're 10 to 1 favorite. So, it's not for you guys to cover 10 people on the donation, So, drop that bread like Strowman's, you know what I mean? Drop a little piece on us, inshallah ta'ala, to help us to continue to do the work that we're doing. Please excuse me tonight. I'm not really feeling too well, but I'm still here. We work through the pain so we can, live through the glory, inshallah ta'ala. So without any further delay, we'll have our Imam Dawood, take over the stage, inshallah ta'ala.
Assalamu alaikum. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا وأسواتنا محمد المصطفى وعلى آله الأصفياء وأصحابه الأتقياء والتابعين لهم بخير وإحسان إلى يوم الجزاء. First of all, let me thank the Imams, and it's a pleasure always to be on here with Imam Amin and Imam Faheem, Imam of the Boom Bap, and our brother Imam Naeem, who just dropped off. Maybe his connection's a little janky over in Cameroon right now. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, maybe he makes it back. But we're here to have a brief discussion, little introduction, and then have some dialogue with the Imams and take your questions about my latest book, that is a Futuwwah and Raising Males in the Sacred Manhood. Came out about 3 weeks ago. It's available, by the way. Masjid Muhammad actually has copies. There it goes, has copies. So make sure you get 2 copies. You get a copy for yourself, and then you pass it on also to a youth or someone that's young, be it your son or your nephew, maybe your blood nephew or your nephew in the community. Make sure you get a couple of copies and support the project. And, don't ask me for a free PDF copy. People in our community who write these books, like Imam Hamza with his books of the Endless Banquet, and others who take time of studying, doing research, checking with our teachers, even going abroad and asking questions about topics. And then, sometimes Negroes want everything free sabilillah, when you got money and everything. Don't confuse fi sabilillah with free sabilillah. There's costs in printing things and putting forth effort. And I just have to say that because I know how we are sometimes. So, Sheikh, can I get just like back in the day on the street, D, let me hold a little something. Let me hold a little something. You got money, you want to spend on something else, but you want to hold a little something, right? Now, Futuwwah and Raising Males in the Sacred Manhood, let me start off with the hadith of our beloved Prophet, alayhi afdalus salam, that has narrated on the authority of Khadim Rasul Anas ibn Malik, ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. Hadith that is well known, that's talking about the signs of the hour. By Imam al-Bukhari, and it's about the signs of the hour. And of the signs of the hour, that we are told that men, rijal, will decrease, and that for every 50 imra'a, for every 50 women, there will be al-qayyimu wahid, right? There will be one upright man who stands up, who serves, who takes on his manly responsibilities. And notice the hadith doesn't say 50 women for every male. This is talking about a specific type of man. And a rajul, a real man, a rajul haqiqi, is different than just a mukallaf, or someone who physically is male and maybe has a beard and a deep voice, but doesn't necessarily that male who is responsible for their deen under the Sharia is this al-qayyim al-wahid. These are different things. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, and Fath al-Bari in his commentary of this hadith about this one particular type of man. And we're talking about signs of the ends of time, right? We're talking about signs of the end of time, the decreasing of real men. He said that this Qayyamul Wahid is the type of man who looks after and takes on the responsibility of the women folk. And that because he's seen to take on this responsibility, that women follow after this particular type of male. Or we can even translate this or say that women seek out this man, or women pursue this one type of man, either in the halal of nikah, or even in haram. They're seeking out this guy, this one particular man. Why? Because at the end of time, this type of man will be so, there'll be such a disproportion between this type of man and other males that this particular type of man is going to be in high demand amongst the women, to the point that women will follow him and pursue him in the halal or even in the haram way, right? So this is something. Now, before defining the term Futuwwah and Rujula, because these terms have meaning in the Arabic language. There have been books that have been written even by non-Muslims that have talked about the issue of the waning of manhood, and there's various reasons historically. There's a good book by Leonard Sachs that's called Boys Adrift that was written over a decade ago. And I know that there's some Muslims in Chicago that aren't African American, but actually from South Asian background, actually hosted him and had a discussion with him out there about how they can, just to get some ideas about some of the root causes behind the waning of manhood. There's another book called Coddling of the American Mind that talks about the whole issue of delayed adolescence, in which there are certain responsibilities that were expected from people, and now how there's been a type of babying of people in delayed adolescence, right? Where things that used to be expected from a 17-year-old now aren't even demanded from 24-year-olds, right? This is another factor. We have the factors in American society of the so-called women's liberation movement, right? And the separation through public policy and encouragement of single parent households that, and of course, there's nothing, there's situations in where people have single parent households and it's not their fault. I mean, the Prophet ﷺ was born yatim. He was born an orphan, so his father wasn't in the household, right? But there were other male figures to help raise him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? But the incentivizing, even through public policy, of keeping men out of households, and incentivizing men not being around through Lyndon Baines Johnson welfare program and these sorts of things that white liberals put forward to supposedly help us. And then we have the gender confusion movements, and this is Gender Confusion Month. It seems it's called so-called Pride, and by the way, fakhr or pride is not a good virtue in Islam. It's actually a negative. That pride is an attribute of Iblis. So it's kind of ironic how the rainbow people named this month Pride Month, because that is a demerit. That's not a good thing. So the gender confusion movements that have confused people to the point, I was just doing a halaqah, a couple of halaqah about a week and a half ago with some young men in Detroit, in a Mumford high school on the east side. It's all black. Detroit's the blackest major city in America. They brought a pride truck to the school, and they have like the rainbow, and they were encouraging students to basically pick their color on the rainbow, and then based upon the color of the rainbow that they liked or picked, then they would try to tell them what their sexual identity would be, or their gender identity, based upon the color that they like on the rainbow, right? And our children are being taught this, or our young adults are being taught in high school, but also even lower, even starting at elementary school. And this is in Motown, this is in Detroit, right? And I'm sure it's going on in other areas too. So there is a real agenda of trying to emasculate and effeminize males, especially the black male. And this is why we see, that anytime there's a so-called first gay football player, or Lil Nas X, the rapper, or Young Thug, he's in jail right now facing RICO, but they want to put the black man at the head of this agenda and put him up in a dress, and then have our young males looking up to dudes talking about they thugs wearing dresses and skirts, Jaden Pinkett, so much gender confusion, right? Now, the term Futuwwah is a word in the Islamic lexicon, and in particular, what we would call traditional Islam, and those people who are adherents to at-tasawwuf, al-Futuwwah. Al-Futuwwah linguistically is related to the word fatah, which means a young male or a young man, and al-fityan is a plurality of the fatah. And this word, what it puts into our minds is a young male who was leaving adolescence, or leaving a stage of not being as responsible and being more playful, into an age of greater maturity and greater responsibility, outwardly, but also inwardly. So normally at this age group of the fatah would be the one like around the age of 14 years old or 15 years old, of what we would call mukallaf, according to the sacred law, according to the Sharia, right? So for instance, Abdullah ibn Umar, the Prophet ﷺ gave him permission to go out and for the ghazwa at the age of 15 years old, right? Usama ibn Zayd, who went into ghazwa as a teenager, right? Usama ibn Zayd, at the age of being a teenager, his marriage was arranged by the Prophet ﷺ to Fatima bint Qais anha, for instance, right? So there's something outwardly that's supposed to be different about the fityan than from boys. Okay, this is an outward. So there's outward traits, but there's supposed to be an inward reality also that reflects the outward traits. And this relates to the ta'lim and the tarbiyah, or the didactic teaching, as well as the upbringing that is modeled and embodied by teachers, if not in that starting in the household, but also in a community in which there's spiritual mentors or spiritual guides or teachers that help raise up the young male and systematically teaching certain virtuous character through actions as well as through speech. And this is done individually through mentorship, but also reinforced collectively. There are some hadith that lack sound asanid that say that this term Futuwwah was mentioned by the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and some of the first generation, like Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah ennoble his countenance. But we do know that this term began to be frequently used in the lexicon of Muslims in the time of Imam Jafar Sadiq and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, right? So this is Futuwwah. Futuwwah, as we're talking about this age, is normally translated as sacred chivalry. We could say Islamic chivalry. And this is talking about or relating to a code of conduct, a code of manly conduct for the Muslim man. And by the way, the concept of chivalry in general, Europeans copied the concept of chivalry when they came in contact and learned this from Muslims. Like, this has been historically established. So talking about the Knights of the Round Table and having the Oath of the Knights and the Templar Knights and having a code of chivalry, and even the Boy Scouts, where there's the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts, and the Eagle Scouts in relationship to bringing people up by degrees, that these things were copied by these things that the white folks copied is them coming in contact with Islamic civilization. Okay. Now, in regards to this raising up and manhood, the scholars have said, number one, that there's different definitions of Futuwwah as it relates to al-rujula. All right. Imam al-Qushayri, he had mentioned, rahimullah ta'ala, that Futuwwah, in its fullest sense, is following the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So our model for manhood is لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. The most beautiful example for humankind is the messenger of God sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But as in his insaniya, he is a model for all humankind, male and female. This model was put in the body in the body of a man, right? The fullness of this expression, not inwardly as much, or I should say inwardly and outwardly, this was put in the persona of a man, right? So this isn't to decrease the status of women, but women don't know how it is to live in the world as men. No matter, even if you try to fill male roles, a woman in Islam can't be a husband. A woman in Islam can't be a father, right? The religious incumbency of el jihad fi sabilillah is upon men according to the Sharia, not women, right? This is a reality. Even when Nusayba anha saved the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she wasn't on the front line of that battle. She was actually on the back, right? That's how she was able to save his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the attackers came, when the army and the people of Khalid ibn al-Walid came, she wasn't on the front line with everybody else fighting on the front line with Hamza and everyone else on the front line. She was always in the rear, and there were always women folk. Fatima Zahra was in the back as well, and the women would come out as nurses. Some of them, but they also would come to the battle with their mahram. So Nusayba, actually, when she went and she was at Uhud, she was with her husband, right? But that wasn't religiously incumbent upon her to, and women aren't expected to be on the front line of battle, right? So there are certain things that distinguishes the male from the female. And the Quran says, and the male ain't like the female. The male is not like the female, right? Inna li kulli shay'in haqiqa, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and surely every created thing has a deeper metaphysical reality. So there's a metaphysical reality about manhood, not just outwardly, but inwardly. And some of the traits of a rujula, of course, can be expressed by women, right? But the fullness of that cannot be expressed by a woman, right? And hence it takes men to be in the lives of helping raise males in the sacred manhood. Though it takes a village, mothers are needed, grandmothers are needed, aunties are needed. There are, of course, but the reality of it is that there has to be male embodiment, and males help raising up our or men of helping to raise up our males to be men, so that they know how to walk and talk and carry themselves with the proper comportment as men should carry themselves. And it's not for women to walk through the earth trying to conduct themselves like men, nor is it for men to walk around and try to conduct themselves like women, irrespective of what the white liberals say, or the black liberals, or the gender confusion movement. Okay, now let's talk about a few things, and I'll stop for discussion. I see I have it on private chat right now. I don't see the comments. There are a lot of comments that have been made since I've been talking. Now, there are certain components regarding to the Futuwwah, and these were systematized. And I talked about this at the conference that Imam Amin helped put on in Atlantic City a few months back, and Imam Faheem was there as well, Imam Naeem, and the brothers and sisters who helped organize that. And when we were in Atlantic City, there was an Abbasid Sultan that came on the scene right before Salahuddin al-Ayyubi was able to go to Jerusalem and take back the Holy Land from the Crusaders. This Abbasi Sultan, his title that he gave himself was An-Nasir li-Dinillah. An-Nasir li-Dinillah is his title. He was a man of letters. He actually had ijaza. He had a sheikh. He had tariqah. He was affiliated with the Qadariyah. He studied hadith. There's even an Arba'in hadith book that he wrote. So this was a man of letters. This Abbasid Sultan. He's better than most of the Abbasid Salatin. This was institutionalized, and this is an idea and something that we've worked on here in Detroit. We have not built it out totally, but about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, a group of brothers, and I mentioned their names in the book. It's the Ansar Collective. We started Futuwwah gatherings of teaching, of not just virtues but also adab, of also then bringing community service opportunities or khidmah opportunities. Also, and most of this was housed at Dar Rahma. The issue of martial arts classes. There's archery every Saturday that's done. And then there's also times of when there are camping opportunities just for the males, fishing trips, teaching young men how to fish, teaching young men how to hunt, deer hunting. So these things were institutionalized in various ways during the time of the Nasir Dinillah. So one, there was the teaching aspect. Number two, there were Futuwwah guilds that were set up, and there were murshideen, or there were spiritual mentors or guides that would help the young men in their tarbiyah. Three, it was the teaching of the martial arts, of the wrestling, and also of use of swords and archery. As-Suyuti, rahimahullah ta'ala, and actually this book was translated by Ustad Nisar in the UK. He translated, I'm forgetting the exact title, but As-Suyuti, rahimahullah ta'ala, actually compiled a book on prophetic wrestling and martial arts, of the ahadith relating to the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba in regards to the wrestling and martial arts, right? So they had this aspect, right? And with this, there is blessings of not only self-defense and physical fitness, but also discipline, right, in these things. And of course, there's barakah, because anything the Prophet ﷺ did and he encouraged the Sahaba to do, such as archery, we know there's spiritual benefit, there's barakah in it, right? And then also there was the Futuwwah guilds. It was the what we call skilled trades or artisanship that was set up. So the skilled guilds, like teaching like how to be a blacksmith. Someone had to make the horseshoes. Someone had to know how to make the swords. even for like the silver ring, like the aqiq ring. Well, this is Feiruz, but the aqiq ring, who makes the rings? There were skills that were taught in the Futuwwah Guild. I think Booker T. Washington called this industrial education, of teaching people not only literacy of how to read and write, to be people of letters in scholarship, but also to do something with their hands. And this is a part of manliness, of learning how to do something, have a trade with your hands. And also this is a way for them to be able, outside of times of conflict, to be able to, a young man have a skilled trade to be able to make a living. Like, so remember Dawood alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with the gift of craftsmanship of the hadid, of the iron, right? We're taught that, right? This is something that's mentioned in the Quran, right? So this is the one aspect that we haven't brought in yet. But as far as gathering young men, having a space where there's real talk, right? How many young men in the community, irrespective of their, not just black folk, not black, they get to be that age and weren't even taught about, erections, having wet dreams. Their mama ain't going to talk to them about wet dreams, right? How to deal with that. How to make ghusl. What happens if some of that stuff gets on the sheets? What to do? To talk to them about, how to control sexual desires, how masturbation is not right. And other things like how to comportment, how to deal and have adab amongst women folk of different ages, because part of adab is giving everyone their proper due at their proper place and time. The adab of dealing with an elderly woman is not the adab of dealing with someone of one same generation, right? That has to be taught, right? And it's males who primarily are tasked to do that, or men who are primarily tasked to do that with the males, right? Because again, the mothers, aren't going to have those conversations. Or if they do, maybe that's not the proper. It may not come across the best way, and you do it amongst a group of males, right? And this in general, there's something about putting the males in groups and for the brotherhood, right, to do things in activities and do it in male only spaces, just as sisters need female only spaces at times, and to learn sacred womanhood, there has to be male only spaces. Now, of course, for ta'lim on certain general things, we bring everyone together, but there needs to be times where there's women have women only spaces with the sisters, and there should be males that have male only spaces in which men are leading those things, and sisters in our community should respect that need for that. Sister, don't try to push yourself in every space. There needs to be male only space. Everything shouldn't be open to everyone. Now, the masjid should be open to you. General classes should be open to you. Don't try to push yourself into the male only space. Just like brothers, you shouldn't be trying to push yourself into the female only space. And we're talking about gender as a divine construct. There's a dhakar and an untha. There's only two genders, right? You can't just say you feel like a man, so you want to go up in the man space. We don't believe in that. That's kufr, right? So with that, I will conclude with my part of the talk before going into any specific virtues. That was just a general, introduction to the topic.
So, barakallahu bikum, Sayyidi Imam. So in your introduction, you mentioned the background of why you decided to author this work. Can you kind of explain that a little to clarify really what is the purpose you wrote the book and why you deemed it an important subject to write about?
Okay, there's two reasons. Number one, a problem that I saw and some of the imams and people of khidmah saw here in Detroit specifically. But number two, the amount of single moms that were reaching out to us, people like Sheikh Abdul Karim Yahya, Sheikh Kafani Sise, myself, Brother Jermaine, Carrie, Big Fresh, people reaching out saying, you know, we need some help. We need some programming. We need some help for our young males, because just bringing them to Jummah prayer and learning tajweed or memorizing the Quran, that is not enough. And we've had situations in our community where a lot of our young brothers, because of not proper mentorship, have caught cases. Some of the Muslim youth in our city, you know, going to the penitentiary, you know, getting caught up, you know, hustling, or the issue of, you know, maybe the young men not doing that, but just being, you know, comfortable with, you know, laying up on their mama's couch and playing Xbox and not even like going out getting a job, you know. So there was something that we saw. I'm gonna tell you two quick things that triggered this for me, Imam. You know, so one of the first story is dealing with Black folk, and the second is dealing with South Asians. So the first one was, I had an issue where a brother contacted me, and there's someone who I know very well. He's like, oh, you know, brother such and such, you know, he sent something, you know, on Facebook, you know, to my wife in a DM. And I thought maybe he was about to say that this brother was hitting on his wife, but no, this wasn't the case. He said that, you know, this brother sent something to my wife, you know, disagreeing with her about something, and she felt threatened and she felt intimidated. So I asked the brother, I said, well, did you contact the brother? And you send him back a message? You send him a message? No. I said, well, you know who the brother is. Did you try to get the brother's phone number to call the brother? And he said, no. I said, brother, why are you contacting me for? I said, don't tell your wife that you called me asking me about should I talk to this brother, and you didn't reach out to talk to the brother first. That your wife is going to lose respect for you, that you can't even stand up for your wife, and you want me to go talk to this brother when you have an ability to talk to the brother. Or if it was a problem, then I said, well, brother, do you have screenshots of the message so I can see what was said? He said, well, no, I don't have it. We delete the screenshot. I said, brother, assalamu alaikum, hung the phone up. You know, that in Arabic is a hadith about this. This is what we would call like a dayuth. This is like an emasculated man, an emasculated male. It's not a man, it's an emasculated male. May Allah protect us from that. The second was a South Asian. You know, sister calls me up, you know, because in the community that I'm at, you know, I deal with a lot of people from South Asian background too, not just African Americans. Even our Futuwwah gathering, by the way, we have a mixture between African Americans who are like young males, teenagers going to college, and then we also have some South Asians and some Arabs. So we kind of got like, it's like half and half between Black and then South Asians and Arabs. Sister called me up and said, you know, I have a problem, Imam. And I said, well, what is it? He said, yeah, I need for you to talk to my husband, but I don't know what to do. I said, well, what's wrong, sister? Sister said that at night, there was a noise they heard downstairs that woke him up from sleep. And the brother said to his wife, did you hear that? And she's like, yeah. And then the brother told his wife, well, why don't you go down there and check it out? I ain't making this up. Now, brother has a beard, brother has a college degree, right? Brother has a house, but see, nafaqah, spending on your wife, that is a religious obligation according to Sharia, but ar-rijalu qawwamun 'ala an-nisa. that men are the servants that's supposed to be standing up and taking care and protecting women. When we're talking about the sacred manhood and that hadith of al-qayyim al-wahid, that brother is not fulfilling the role of qayyim, right? You know, and now his wife is like, want me to talk to him. Now she's probably lost respect for him, you know, and you know, sisters don't want that. I mean, and think about this, when we talk about sacred manhood, we're talking about the wasat, the heart of the male or the middle. Because see, anything too far to the right nor too far to the left is sacred manhood. So too far to the right is the man who's a brute, you know, like we could say like Ike Turner status, right? Maybe for some of you young folks, you might not get the generational reference, you know, but
a little Ike Turner is necessary sometimes, my brother. You know, the brute, you know, but then you have on the other end, you have the youth, you have the effeminate, emasculated, sissified, Brokeback Mountain type of dude, right? Even though he may not be, you know, part of LGBTQ community, but still, you know, so the sacred manhood is in the middle. There's a time to be soft and compassionate, but when it's time to like part of chivalry is, especially women folk, is that we prefer our women folk over ourselves, that we as men are willing to put ourselves at physical danger to protect our women in our community to the point that we're willing to give our lives, right? And this is what the Sahaba did, even after the time of the Prophet, like at Yarmouk, right? With these Sahaba, like Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, right? People willing to give their lives to protect their women folk, you know, protect the Ummah, right? But not like, oh, you know, honey, you know, I heard a little, can you go and check that out? Or you give your wife the Glock to go downstairs and check out and see if someone bum rushed the door and came in. You don't even go downstairs. La hawla la quwwata illa billah. So Imam, these are things that triggered me. Said, you know what? We got to put this thing together and get some information out, because we got a problem. I share a story with you that truly happened. I don't want to get into too many details, so I get in trouble for that, right? But so a guy calls me and he says, I need you to come handle a situation. I said, what situation? He said, somebody punched my wife in the face. So, you know, more than now, automatically my spirit's like, all right, we're going to handle that, right? But I said, wait a minute. What was you doing? He said, oh, I saw it on the camera. I said, what? He said, I had to make sure nobody steal nothing out the store. So I was watching on the camera and saw what happened. And I looked at him like, man, you can't be serious. You want me now to go risk myself, my family, the community, because you don't have no manhood. I can see if you called me and said, oh, they beat me up and my wife, then I'm calling you. No, they hit my wife. I was watching on the camera and I need you to come get them. I said, La hawla wa la quwwata. That's what you're talking about, stuff like that.
I got another story for you, something from Detroit. I'm not going to mention the particular masjid, but there's some brothers that are part of Jamaat al-Tabligh, or some call it Tabligh Jamaat. Brothers be going out for 40 days and leaving their wives with no money, right? And they come to the masjid where I used to be at, hungry. So I was the assistant imam of this masjid. And the resident imam, he gave a talk one day, actually, and he was talking about this issue of men that are protectors and maintainers of women. And he said that, you know, these sisters keep coming to the office asking for zakat, but they're married. And he said that's because the men are leaving for 40 days, 40 nights, and not leaving them any money. And then when the brothers turn their phones off because the head of the Jamaat told them that, you know, don't answer when your wife calls, because Shaitan is working through her trying to get you off the path to come back home. So the Imam, rahmatullahi alayh, who passed away during the COVID-19 pandemic beginning, he said jokingly, he said, shoot, sisters keep coming to the office asking for zakat. He says, I'm gonna grab them, divorce, and make them my wives. But it's pitiful, the state that even some of our Muslim brothers have gotten to, claiming to be following the Quran and Sunnah and not even doing, the very basics of what a man's supposed to do. And to the point that, like you mentioned, somebody can assault their wife and they don't do anything and go to another brother, or come into a brother, letting their wives come to other men to beg for money when they have the money to give to their wives, right? That's just totally unacceptable. And that has nothing to do with Quran and Sunnah. It had nothing to do with Quran and Sunnah. Doesn't matter what the head of the Jama'ah or the Murshid or your cult leader says. That had nothing to do with the Quran and Sunnah.
But I want to say something about this. I'm reading a beautiful book on Jama'atul Tabligh, right? This book is nice. I'll send you a picture of it. I don't have it with me. But it talks about the origin of that group and the Sheikh Muhammad Ilyas al-Kandahlawi and his children and his grandchildren, by the way, who are all scholarly people. And what we're seeing of the Tabligh Jama'ah or Jama'at Tabligh doesn't represent what they started at all. And that should be well known.
Of course.
And the author made a point, right, that many groups have this trait that they start off with good things and later on it get corrupted by people, sometimes even by leaders. But initially it is a great movement sometimes, but it goes left sometimes, like extreme. But sometimes that needs to be highlighted, right? Because the Tabligh Jamaat, and I remember when I was a kid, when the Tabligh Jamaat used to go out, there was always an alim with us in those days, right? I'm talking about the early 80s, mid 80s. Like you would have, the Amir would be learned. Today, they just go to Masjid and pick up anyone and no one's, no learned people. So we should really, in fairness, distinguish between what's happening today and the original intent of the movement.
Yeah.
And that should be across the board in different movements, because those people were great scholars, like Sheikh Muhammad Zakaria al-Kandahlawi, Sheikh Muhammad Yusuf al-Kandahlawi. You read their works, and these people were amazing scholars, especially in the field of hadith and its sciences, right? So I just, and that's not the subject, but I mean, really, 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 I would love to see a black Tabligh Jamaat with knowledge, originally doing that work, with those points, with responsibility, with some futuwwah. We need that in our communities.
Right. And thank you for bringing up Sheikh Amin and for clarifying, when I mentioned those brothers who do that here in Detroit, those are our people. The Pakistani brothers who go out in Jama'ah and go on Khuruj, they don't leave their wives coming to me or coming to Sheikh Ali Suleiman or coming asking for money. That's our people that do that. So it's not a trait of Jama'atul Tabligh per se, or part of their methodology for bumism. We just have some people who aren't manly and not responsible and try to live vicariously through the Jama'at with not taking care of their primary responsibilities that they're supposed to take care of according to the sacred law. So I said, and of course, that's even in all of our brothers, even who are part of that. But I just had to point that out. So thank you for mentioning that, Imam.
Now, here's a question. So related to the topic, you mentioned something in your preface, in your introduction, that I found was very deep, that I think gets wiped out. You talked about your upbringing as a child related to the topic of al-Futuwwah and what values you learned as a young African male growing up, and what manhood looked like in your time as to what you're writing about now. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, so I was born in Detroit. When we moved, and I went to New York for a minute, then went down to Virginia and Tidewater area in Central Virginia. So like most of my mom's family on her side, my granddaddy, who's about to turn 96 years old, inshallah, uncles, all those people were down there. So number one, I grew up in a time where everyone in the block or neighborhood had permission to discipline me. And as a matter of fact, I remember sometimes getting in trouble where the news beat me back home and I would get 2 whippings. And see, that was good for me, right? The elder in the community or my uncle or someone would be able to give me a whipping, and then I'd get back home and get a whipping or get some sort of discipline, right? That's one thing that's different. Number 2 is that through team sports, I also had coaches that acted like mentors, right? So not only playing baseball and playing football, we'd be taught discipline, taught chain of command, because there's a captain of the football team. Everyone can't be the quarterback, right? You have to coach or coaches. So there was that aspect, but our coaches and mentors would take us out to do other things. For instance, like my first time handling a gun and going turkey hunting, I was with the football team. You see, so I grew up like knowing how to use firearms in the proper way. And it wasn't hunting for sport. You would go hunt for turkey or deer, and you catch something and you come back and you eat it, right? Same thing with going out fishing, right? So those were activities. And then also playing sports, like we'd be told, like, you know, you'd have someone even like raising their voice, like trying to get you fired up, to get like your adrenaline going, your testosterone. You know, you do a task and you be like, "Urgh!" You know what I mean? You go and you're doing some work and you finish the task and pick up, "Urgh!" You be able to, you brothers know what I'm talking about, right? Sisters may not know what I'm talking about, right? Like, yeah, right? And and so
One more time for the record.
Right? So, you know, in the gym lifting weights, you know, I was always in activities, right? And that helped keep me out of trouble to an extent. You know, I did martial arts, you know, so all those things were done. And also like I had like Atari 2600, you know, I had the video game, right? For some of the young people, they wouldn't even know that little joystick thing. They would think those games were whack.
Asteroids.
But, yeah, Asteroid, you know, Pac-Man, Centipede. But you know, I had tasks and duties, but I just couldn't sit in the house all day. You know, especially down south when it's warm. It's expected for a young man to go outside and do something, right? You don't sit up in the house and just lay around, right? So like that was a whole different time. And not saying that name calling was right, but you know, if you as a guy would like hang around your mama lay folks too much, I didn't do that, but the elders would say, get over here and stop being around your mama before you grow up and be a sissy, right? Because back then you could, you know, saying sissy, you know, that wasn't considered to be, you know, like now you can't even publicly say sissy, you get called a homophobe. But that's the environment that, you know, I grew up in. And so I'm 50 years old now. Things have changed dramatically, since those days. Now these days in class, like even like I'll give you an example. If a teacher sent word back that I wasn't doing well in school, or I was maybe not paying attention or misbehaving, my mom or my uncle and them didn't try to come to the school and cuss out the teacher or try to get in a fight with the teacher. They're like, boy, you better listen to your teacher. And you get and your parent would reprimand you in front of the teacher. Now these days, the parents want to go to the teacher and cuss out the teacher for saying that their boy was cutting up or acting bad. And also, I grew up in a time we had paddles in school, so we had corporal punishment. And when I was in school in Virginia, as a matter of fact, one of my teachers, I was telling my kids about this. They thought it was crazy. I remember her name, Miss Gold, 5th grade teacher. First day of class, she'd have a survey, and she would ask us, like, what's our favorite color? She asked us questions. Now, I didn't know this, but after the first time someone got in trouble, she has a little closet next to her where she kept supplies. She opened her closet, and she had a group of paddles that were color-coded. The smallest paddle was the pink paddle. That was the girl's favorite color, right? The biggest paddle was the blue paddle. These were like thick wooden paddles, right? So most of the guys would pick blue or green. The smallest one was the pink one. And whatever color you pick, you go to your file and pick, oh, I see your favorite color is blue. And then open up the closet and pull out the blue paddle. So I mean that was those were discipline is the important thing is that young males need a sense of discipline, order, and structure in their lives, and it can't just be a situation of a lack of discipline and a lack of order. Otherwise, they'll flounder when males get older of taking on manly responsibility.
Hey, you know something? You just reminded me of some serious racism I was traumatized with. Really, wait a minute, I just thought about it. Seriously, I never paid it no attention. Just when you was talking, I said, wait a minute. I thought about you and I was laughing. Yeah, because I remember in school when we used to get whoopings, right? And really, baseball bats, horse whips, plastic baseball bats, paddles, rulers.
You ever get a shoe?
Huh?
You ever get a shoe?
Nah, they used to just use weapons, weapons of destruction. Wait a minute, but let me check this out. What I just realized. So I grew up in Atlantic City. When I grew up in the 70s, Atlantic City was still racially divided. So, you come in the expressway, to the right was the white neighborhood, the last end of the black neighborhood, and one block over, the rest is the white neighborhood. So where the Masjid is at, that's in the white neighborhood in the 70s, right? So we lived on the border of the white neighborhood before it crosses over to the black, right? So where I went to school originally, because we couldn't go to the black schools, was white schools. And we didn't get whoopings. There was no beatings. I never noticed. I didn't pay attention to you just mentioned it. We didn't get in trouble. No, like maybe you get suspended, but never a beating. Out of the question. So in the 4th grade, I got put out of school. I hit a teacher, bad Amin, right? I socked one of my teachers and they put me out, sent me to the child study team, and then sent me to the black schools, right? Now, I didn't get in trouble. I mean, I got suspended. I got in trouble when I got home, but from the teachers, no one put their hands on me, right? So I go to the black school, and, I'm from the project, so, sometimes we're a little wayward, right? So I got in a fight, like the first week. I got, in the black school, you got the Duke of the school, that type of stuff going on. So a guy from my neighborhood was getting bullied. So I jumped in. He's like, he's from my neighborhood, right? Got in a fight. I won the fight. When I got back to the class, the teacher pulled out a paddle. No, he didn't even have a paddle. He had a horse, you know, to whip the horses with when they race? He had one of those. And he was like, come here over here, boy. I'm getting ready to give you a whipping. And I'm looking at this dude like, you ain't getting ready to whip me. What's that? Boy, he fired me up. And it was the first time I realized that in the black school, they were whipping the kids, but in the white schools, they didn't get whippings in the same school district. So I didn't know that. I didn't pay attention till you just said that. And I was, wait a minute, everybody wasn't getting whoopings. Only the black kids was getting whoopings. Kind of racist there, right? I got to bring that up at the next board meeting. I'm still traumatized.
MashaAllah.
Imam, I mean, you was that little boy. Remember that episode, Good Times, when Michael brought his friend home? He was all unrefined. James tore his ass up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a missing element, man. You know.
And I'll give you an example. That teacher, still today, I see him. He gave my first beating in school. His name is Mr. Irvin. He big dude. In those days, he's still a big guy, but he was a real big guy in those days, right? Because that's in the 70s. He was a real big dude.
So before I go to answer a question, I want to make a comment real quick, just before you continue, Imam Amin, and I'm going to do this plug. So we're talking about responsibility and manhood. So I'm a discussant on this panel, and I paid my cover fee. So everyone, especially the men, you want to be a real man, right? Take care of responsibilities. I know Imam Faheem always talks about pay your cover fee. Go ahead and pay your cover fee if you haven't paid your cover fee yet. So I just threw that plug in, and that was unprompted. Yeah. Bismillah, go ahead, Imam Amin.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, so I see him today, you know, now I'm older and Imam, and I see him today, I never forget that beating. And back in my mind, I should give him a body shot. Because I was too little, I was like, I should get you, man. Now, but one more question. That's sidebar. You just see, we be traumatized and don't realize we traumatized, right? I started thinking, like, wait a minute, that was being racist towards us, right? The other question, you mentioned the two extremes in your book. That's a very good book, by the way. In every way, I must say. Could you raise that book up again, please? You can't see how beautiful that book is. Just scroll through the pages like this, let them see it. I mean, this is some excellent work. You got it.
So, for instance, there's a chapter on pardoning right there.
Look at the paper. Beautiful.
High gloss. There's some graphics in here. We go in, got some different people that people can look up to. We got Omar el-Mukhtar, the great Libyan Mujahid and Sufi right there. You know, we got some different things in here. Chapter on this is also, I mean, obviously, I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. This is the Ghazi hat from Resurrection Eartherol. And actually, you know, that TV series with a number of its, you know, there's a few historical inaccuracies in it, and you know, a couple of things that maybe aren't, you know, all the way on the up and up. But that TV series does show chivalry, you know, as far as how the Alps, you know, deal with the chain of command. You have Eartherol, who's the head. Eartherol has a sheikh who's Ibn Arabi. Then there's also the grandson of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, Qadislahu Sirra.
Sheikh al-Akbar, Ibn Arabi.
Cameroon.
Oh, don't worry, he can't hear.
Yeah. Man, them Africans that be hitting you up on Facebook Messenger got a better reception. You know, Imam Naeem.
Hey, I'm sorry. We got
enough.
we can't help ourselves. I want to join the Black Imams Roundtable. You need to pay your internet service.
We are moving. We are moving.
No, it's not working out for Imam Naeem.
Here, so you mentioned two extremes in your book. Very important. You mentioned, and you indicated when you were talking earlier, you mentioned the extreme of extreme passiveness from young males. And then you mentioned the other side, the overexerting bully type of mentality brute of some men. And that al-Futuwwah that you're looking for is a balance in the middle of that. Can you talk a little about both extremes and how do we achieve that balance?
Yeah, so firstly, the Quran says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاسِطًا, right? So we've been made the middle community. We take the middle ground. The Quran and Sunnah is what sets the parameters of what the middle ground is. And we have the hadith, خَيْرُ الْأُمُورِ أَوْسَطُهَا, that the best of matters are those in the middle. So we look for the wasit, as Imam Ghazali mentions in his writings. There's a good book. I'm not sure if it's translated into English yet, but Mizan al-Amal is one of the first books on Islamic ethics. But the Ihya al-Mudim talks about this too, about the middle ground. For instance, we talk about courage as a virtue. So when we talk about these virtues of Futuwwah, we're looking for the middle. We're not looking for necessarily the maqabil or the exact polar opposite. We're looking for the wasit, what's in the middle. So for instance, a shuja'a, courage, the wasit for Futuwwah, because courage is a virtue within sacred manhood. To the right extreme, it would be recklessness, right? Being reckless is not being courageous, right? To the left is cowardice, or it's called in the Hadith al-Jubn. Like, so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sought refuge from cowardice, from being a coward, right? So that middle, that sweet spot, or the heart, like if we're, and imagine like if we're trying to shoot an arrow for a bow and arrow, and we're trying to hit the bullseye, that's the wasit, and that's what we're seeking to aim for in our embodiment, and also what we're seeking to transmit to our young people, right? So this is the heart of the matter. So in this book, when you look at the virtues, we're discussing these virtues, and we're seeking these sacred virtues as the wasit, or the sweet spot is the middle spot. Anything too far to the right or too far to the left is not meritorious. It's not virtuous. And by the way, this same thing, and I mentioned this in Towards Sacred Activism and talking about this same principle goes over to politics and the activism, right? And even Islamically speaking, we shouldn't be saying that we're from the right or from the left, or that we're a conservative Muslim or we're a progressive Muslim, because both of those political platforms are outside of wasatiyah. They're outside of our balance. So, we don't need any alt-right Muslims, and then we don't need any so-called progressive or like leftist woke Muslims, right? Our goal is the wasit. You're muted, Imam.
Pause for our sponsors, direct from the Gambia, our Sheikh Imam Naeem. Go for it, Imam Naeem.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Alaikum salam.
Alaikum salam.
Hey, yo, we got a studio audience here. Say salam, y'all.
Alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah.
Thanks for joining us.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I missed most of the conversation. My phone is go up. All of them listening to the program. I'm here trying to get the Wi-Fi to work.
You have any questions, Imam Naeem?
What y'all talk about? Start from the beginning.
He's talking about Al-Futuwwah. You read the book? What's your questions from the book? You have the author right here, the distinguished author.
I didn't read the book yet.
What
Yeah.
in the what?
Yeah, Imam Dawood, I wanted
Eject him, please. Right?
Yeah, I want to because I thought we were doing the other subject this week. So had I known, I would have had gotten the book read. So please forgive me. But I'll have it read next time.
Imam Dawood, I read your book.
No, he read, he took clips from it. He didn't read the book. Don't get up here and lie, man.
He read the cover.
Yeah, he scanned through it, you know what I mean? But he did better than us.
I was reading your book. I had it in my hand, open, going through it, making my notes.
Well, I had a question, Imam Dawood. You know, many of the things that you mentioned is very important because when we talk about the balance between having extremities and like being bullies and then having like a passive kind of man, and then I think, you know, in these times, people are trying to redefine what manhood is, like, you know, and I think they use both of these extremes to try to come up with a concept to say, you know, to remove manhood altogether. Yeah, you know, because it's a problem. You know, they define manhood as like men fighting with each other. We cause wars and killing and all types of stuff, you know. But just listening to this conversation, you know, a lot of the stuff that really makes a manhood or what they would call toxic masculinity is what's really needed, you know, because I was just thinking about childhood stuff, you know, like when you had men around and just, I know, I mean, it was toxic. Like, you know, the men I grew up around with, they all, you know, they drank beers and they talked trash to each other, you know, but they also were the type that, you know, they would snatch you up by the collar and their manly presence meant something, you know what I mean? And it wasn't a problem like, you know, boy, what you doing, you know, or we grew up with our peers, you know, and you guys know, you had this stuff like going to the body, man, slap boxing. You know, anytime we had some type of thing, we you know, we capping on each other. You know, if somebody says something, somebody hit you with a jab, boom, and then it's on. And you know, or we wrestling, you know, we definitely going to the body, you know, and then if it got real, sometimes somebody slipped up and hit you in the chin. Oh man, then we might, you know, but that stuff is what makes. It helps to develop you, and now this stuff is kind of you know, like now doing this kind of stuff, man. You know, you can in some parts of the, you know, in society, you can get in trouble for this stuff, man. You know, and it was interesting when you said about like sissies and stuff. You can't even say this word, and I remember working in the school as a volunteer. You know, so I like boys. My concentration is on boys and always roughing them up. You know what I mean? Not really being like abusive, but roughing them up. You know, like, boy, who you talking to? What? And you know, and I got flagged for some of that stuff like that. And actually, the last time I was working in the school, you know, they kind of removed me because I wasn't afraid of the kids. You know, and I saw a lot of the teachers. Somebody put in the comment like, you know, the principal is afraid of the teachers and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people were afraid of the kids, and that's what made the difference between me and a few other brothers that you know, that used to do it. That we weren't afraid of the boys, and they knew it, and they felt it. You know what I mean? So, and they dealt with us differently. You know, it's like, okay, I used to see them run over such and such, Mr. Such and such, but when Mr. Lee came, they would straighten up. Like you know, you see them in the hall, then soon they turn around, see me, they be like, oh, Mr. Lee, oh my bad. Yeah, I know you're bad, little nigga. Right? And so, but what steps can and I think Imam Amin alluded to that. What steps can we do? You know, because a lot of Muslims are, I think they're kind of influenced by this modern thing where you can't be rough on boys because it's like offensive. You know, what practical steps can we take to, you know, and one make sure that we concentrate on our Muslim boys. And then, you know, in general, you know, how we deal with boys without, you know, without having to worry about all this backlash, you know.
So I'm gonna start off with language, and words are powerful. And For instance, we need to be very careful about the words that we use, the words that we deploy in our community, and how we talk amongst ourselves as a community, and how we talk to our young men and our young women. So for instance, use the term toxic masculinity. I don't even use that term, right? Number one, because there's nothing toxic about rujula or masculinity. So those terms shouldn't even be connected. And then there's no such term as toxic femininity, right? But it's certain traits that have been seen as historically masculine, like being stoic and being determined in the face of adversity. Like, no, you're supposed to show your softer side, you know, like that's shown as as a demerit. You know, so we have to be careful about the language that we use. And unfortunately, I say this, that we can be sincere and be sincerely wrong. So I also challenge us, and I've said this before in here. So like, I've gone to a secular university besides studying with scholars. I have a college degree, but we cannot prioritize the language of social sciences and critical gender theory and these studies and prioritize that and make that like our standard of like how we judge things, right? That's a problem that we have in the community, right? From some of us who studied in these schools to even Muslim academics who push this stuff, right? That's one thing. The second thing is going back to what you said as far as getting people together and to toughen them up. We need to organize these Futuwwah guilds, and I'm working with some people about having discussions about, based upon what we've been doing here, about trying to put forth a handbook or a model that can be tailored to one's locality, right? Because in different localities of the country, there may need to be some tweaking of some specifics, right? But one thing is for sure in this is that with the brotherhood and toughening up, that we have to have rites of passage for our young males to come into manhood. Rites of passage are very important, right? And different societies of Muslims have rites of passage. We have to figure out what fits within our culture and our geography, the appropriate rites of passage where that symbolizes a young male who comes out of adolescence, that basically he's getting somewhat qualified. We don't want to use the term ijaza, but he's being recognized that he's gone through this training where he's learned the basics and been taught certain virtues that he exemplifies to a degree. And of course, it's a lifelong process for all of us, where now this young male is recognized as being a man amongst us, and he should be treated as such. He shouldn't be talked to as a boy, or he's just simply the youth. No, this is we treat him like a man with the expectation that he rises to the expectation of acting like a man, of having that comportment, that adab, and taking on greater responsibility. So rites of passage are also very important. This was shown, by the way. I mean, different cultures have different. I mean, if you read the book Roots, if you see the original version of Roots, even the second version, what the Mandinka tribe went through in Kuta Kinte, that was the type of what those young men were going through a rites of passage. When I was in Mali, and at the part of the southern border and what's the Dogon tribe area close to Burkina Faso, I literally sat there and watched and had explained to me. And I met some of the young males who went through the rite of passage of going from boys to being into the Fitian, right? They had their own specific rites of passage where they were recognized as though you don't call this a boy anymore. They are now recognized as a man in the village, right? And we need that. And the men folk have to be the ones to help instill that. And I know sometimes the moms, sometimes it's hard for moms to let go, but this whole thing about, oh, this is my baby, you treat your son, with your affection, and women are more jamali in their fitra anyway, whereas men are supposed to be more jalali, right? So we get that, but there has to be a time where the moms let go. This can't be your baby, and that boy has to go and get toughened up, and you have to let him fall and go through some mistakes and some errors, and you just can't come as a mother and run to your son's defense all the time, right? And sometimes with good intentions, we can do harm to our boys like that. And I'm speaking to moms, right? With good intentions, you can turn your boy or your young male to a mama's boy, to a softie, by running to his defense all the time. No, he has to get disciplined and go out and take his lumps sometimes. And that's part of being a man.
You gotta let Jack Spade get beat up by the twins, man. Remember, I'm gonna get you, sucker. His mom, every time he got into something, Mom, every time I get into something, here you come. Yeah, we got a few questions, Imam. Amin, do we want to entertain them or? But where we at? We at $350. Okay, we got a yard and a half to go. Let's go. Let's drop that bread like wonder. You know what I mean? Make it shake and thunder. You know what I mean? Let's help us to meet our goal, inshallah. All right. So you want to take these questions, Imam Amin, or?
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah, okay. The first one says, Assalamu alaikum. What do you think about establishing MSA at the high school level in public schools? Or Muslim Students Association, for those who don't know what MSA is.
Okay, so we have MSAs in some of the public schools here in Detroit area, both in the city proper, like Cass Tech High School, as well as some of the other schools. MSAs are good, but MSAs aren't necessarily the solution. Number one, there needs to be faculty advisors, right? And sometimes when there's not Muslim teachers available, you have a non-Muslim being the faculty advisor of the MSA. Number two, and just keep it real, public schools are dominated by women teachers, right? Public schools are most public schools we could say are matriarchies. Just like in the Black community, much of the Black community turned to a matriarchy. So MSAs are good just to have general gatherings, but for the principle of Futuwwah, right? We need men to be over these things and to look after these things. So yeah, MSAs are good, and they're helpful, and they're a way of Muslims coming together and socialize, or maybe there's like Salat al-Jumu'ah at the high school, like after classes or things like that, or they can have the Ramadan awareness program in the high school. But that's not really what we're talking about in terms of this issue of Futuwwah. MSAs at the high school, I don't think really is really a solution, but inshallah, it wouldn't be harmful. It could bring some sort of benefit, perhaps.
But I think, Imam Faheem, what may be a supplement for that is what you did, and I did the same thing, is that you have men going into those schools, especially at the high schools, and getting with those youth and engaging them through the school, like you did, like I did the same thing, and I think that's needed. We did it was a few weeks ago where we went into the school and they had like a teen summit, and everybody that went, most of us were Muslim, and there were like the brother Wallow from $1 Million Worth of Game. We went and we was in the schools talking to the youth, and you know, it was a good exchange. I think that that's needed, and that could be like a supplement that's organized that would, you know, serve the same purpose, inshallah, and probably would be more effective.
Okay, there's another question. Did anybody else want to tackle that, or?
Good.
There's another question from Brother Nathar Daniel. It says, "Are you familiar with the author Jawaza Kujufu and his books from over 25 years ago?" Yeah, can I chime in on that one real quick?
Bismillah.
He actually has a couple books, not just the ones. Yeah, I know the one you're talking about, The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. I think it came out like 87. But he has some recent books that were very important. One of them, it was talking about understanding Black male learning styles, you know, and he was talking about, as one of the sisters alluded to, like, with no male teachers in the class, but he was talking about how you set the desk up, you know, the way you set the desk up in the class. Oh yeah, the sister was saying like 90% of the teachers in like elementary school are women. And I read another stat that in the public schools, there was 83% of them are white women, you know, so they don't understand Black male learning styles. So when they see, he talks about this concept about Black males being right brain learners, you know, that they learn different, you know. And he mentioned something, said, I always thought it was very profound. He said, if children don't learn the way that we teach, we have to teach the way that they learn. You know, because this is important when a lot of children, especially young Black boys, you know, they can't sit down and do this rote, you know, learning, just reading a book. And, you know, sometimes it has to be verbally presented to them. He mentioned a strategy, like sometimes you let a kid get up with his book instead of sitting at his desk, let him walk around and read the book, you know, let him express himself, not just reading the book, but what he understood from it and things like that, because that's part of his learning style. Because if he's at his desk fidgeting and he's moving around, he got a different kind of energy, then they want to classify him as ADHD and all this kind of stuff. So he was just saying, like, people, you know, it's a book that's called 200 plus effective learning strategies for Black boys. And then the other one is like understanding Black male learning styles. So I just want to say, it's, you know, he don't just got old books. He got some new ones that, you know, as Muslims, you know, wisdom, as the Prophet ﷺ said, wisdom is the lost property of the believer. You know, wherever he finds it, he takes claim to it. So, you know, those things you can check them out, inshallah. But yeah, that was all I had.
Yeah, I don't have anything further to add. I've heard of the brother, but yeah, I don't have anything further to add.
A quick question before we move. No, go ahead. I got to recall the question because I think y'all was talking about it when I was gone. But go ahead.
You want to go to the next question, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
It says that, well, we kind of touched on this. It says, are there any plans in action to expand the Futuwwah guilds across the nation? I'm ready to move imams. Yeah, we kind of discussed that already. And this next question is, and this is directed to you, Imam Dawood. It says, Imam, do you feel yet? I mean, when they say Imam, out of us, you are the Imam, Imam Dawood. I don't know if you knew that or not. Yeah, when they say Imam, they mean you. No, it says, Imam, do you feel that these young boys being filtered through the penal system is part of the problem?
Well, yeah, it's definitely part of the problem. But let me say, being filtered through the penal system is actually a symptom of the problem. So it's not the problem itself. It is one of the steps that is part of a root problem, right? So, and there's multiple layers of this. There's layers that are internal inside of our community, and there's also how the society is set up in regards to policing of Black communities, the criminal injustice system, how juries or judges will charge our people differently, whereas other racial groups aren't charged the same way or given probation or given intervention programs when our people get caught up. So there's multiple layers, but we have to take responsibility for what we can. And one of the biggest things that we could do as a community to help our males become men is the discussion that's been led by the Black Imams Roundtable, and you'll be picking up next week, that relates to us, marriage, choosing right mates, trying to cultivate healthy marriages. And if, in fact, couples who are married get divorced and the males in the household, even if there's some beef between husband and wife, because normally, I mean, you know, people don't get divorced on good terms, but that there's not an issue in which mothers are using child time with the father as a means of retaliation against her beef with the father. And that's something that I've seen in our community, where the sister, you know, and I'll keep balance. The brothers, when if they get divorced from their wife, shouldn't be going to the children, bad mouthing their ex-wife or talking about the problems they had in their marriage. Likewise, the mother shouldn't be talking bad about the father of the children, trying to put down his esteem. And I've also seen this, that the mother will try to treat her sons almost like their husbands, in the sense that they're talking about all their problems and talk about their ex-husband and treating their son almost like their confidant. That's not what your son's supposed to be, right? And when you confide about certain things, and especially about your problems or your beef with your ex-husband, that's not proper. And then you wonder when your son gets older and he has issues of dealing with women properly or being responsible. You know, Imam Amin's over there shaking his head, but you know.
I'm laughing, man. He says off the chain. It's my brother, but boy, he just come up with some stuff. I'm sorry. Just some of the comments be way out there. Emotional incest. SubhanAllah. I'm sorry.
Wow, that's an interesting term right there. Emotional incest.
Yeah, Issa better stop being cheap, man. Pay full price for those books, man.
You know, one of the things I wanted to, while we're here, as a kind of a pathway to continuing for next week, just quickly. And we have to learn how to depart and separate in peace, with kindness, with ihsan. Listen, I remember a person, he was in court with child support, and he went to the court clerk and said, listen, I just want to, whatever I got to do, I just want to get this over with, right? Whatever I got to do, I just want to settle this and be done with it. So the clerk said to the man, do you have children by her? And the man said, yes. She said, it's never going to be over. You better learn to make a peace treaty. It's never going to be over. You better learn to make a peace treaty. And that clerk was speaking from courthouse experience. Listen, go make a peace treaty. And I think with us, we need to learn that in general, right? Like, sometimes I see comments and I see interactions, and I know a lot of us are still bitter, right? We haven't learned to get past our breakups, our separations. That is a skill in and of itself, how to move on with your life productively, right? We have to learn that skill, or that problem, that trauma that we're suffering from previous relationships is going to constantly raise its ugly head, and it's going to destroy future relationships and therefore the community. Because a lot of this bad mouthing we see from men to women and women to men is pain and trauma that people went through that they haven't dealt with, right? Not all women are loud mouths, bad. Not all men are bums, don't pay their bills, that's not the case for everybody. We received a message today that was deep. And I asked the person, I said, well, don't let me speak for you, speak for yourself. Right? But the brother made a point, and I know the brother, he's college educated, has a good career, raised in a Muslim family, Black, African-American, has children, has a wife, maintain relationship. He's like, sometimes I listen to y'all and y'all one-sided because not everybody's ghetto, not everybody's from the hood. That is not necessarily Black people. And sometimes we trying to generalize too much when people are different expressions and different views. Some people don't see the dysfunction that we see, right? And that also needs to be highlighted. You know what I mean? That listen, and that's why good examples is needed, and how to, connect our different experiences, right? Because I know I'm guilty of it. To me, if you don't have inner city experiences, you're not really black. But that's not true. But I be feeling that way. Inside, I know myself, I'd be like, man, house Negro, right? Right? But that's not true. They have their own experience. They have their own black experience, because it ain't my experience. Like, you ain't a real man unless you went to prison yet. You know what I mean? No, that's not. You don't have to go to prison to be a man, right? And, we have to, kind of fix that issue. Everybody has unique experiences, and all those experiences are necessary for our collective development. What do you think about that, Imam Dawood? That was really a question.
No, I mean, you made it very clear, and I agree with you 100%. I think sometimes as imams, we need to hear those messages from brothers and from sisters to point this out to us, because as imams, we're in crisis mode so much, and we have so many people coming to us, and many times when people come to us, it's because they got a problem. And so we are exposed to some of the we're exposed to a lot of the dysfunction in our community, maybe more so than the generality of the community, because we know a lot of things that we don't, in specific cases, we don't talk about publicly. So I agree with you that those we need to be reminded about, not overly generalizing. And also, it's important for us to lift up positive models. There's no doubt about it. One other point I want to make in regards to what I was saying, and this had nothing to do with social economic background, but one thing that the mothers in helping in this process need to be careful about is do not unintentionally undermine the authority of men, especially starting with your husband or your ex-husband. So I'll give you a quick example, something that may seem innocent. Let's say a son does something, and the father tells the son, no, you can't do that, and maybe raises his voice and gets a little stern with them and say, no, you can't do it, and and then, like, don't pout or suck your teeth, go in your room, boy. And then the son goes off to his room or whatever, and then the father goes off to go take a shower or go make salah, and then the mother comes to her son and says, oh, don't worry about it, baby, here you go. And then will, like, behind the father's back, give the son exactly what the father said he shouldn't get, right? Say, here you go, baby. Don't say nothing to your daddy. You are teaching your son how to disrespect and not follow male authority when you do stuff like that in the name of trying to be soft or console your son. Don't do that. Don't do that, right? So part of this rearing up, and part of the problem that we have sometimes with our young males, is that they've had not just in the broader society, because we know as black men, the broader society's had an agenda to undermine the authority of the black man in society, but also in the household. But sometimes unintentionally, the mother can undermine the authority in general of the man, right? And he's not going to grow up and be well, he could be, because Allah knows best and Allah ultimately guides, but you don't want to be a part of an endeavor that you are undermining the authority of the man in the life of your sons. That's the point that I'm making.
Alhamdulillah, that kind of segues right into our next question. We've got time. It says, I would like the imams to address the aspect that the amount of responsibility is tied to the amount of authority, because without accepting authority, there is limited responsibility.
Yeah, I just kind of touched on that right there in regards to the importance of authority. Bismillah, go ahead, Imam Amin.
No, go ahead. I'll come in.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Bismillah, go ahead.
No, you more smart. You smarter than me.
No. I was kind of like alluding to that, touching on that, because I glanced over at the private chat and kind of like was trying to preemptively address that. But go ahead.
I think you would be better at it.
No, really.
Yeah, I'm gonna come by now because I want to have some fun first. Afterwards.
No, go ahead, really.
This ain't who gonna lead the salat or the khutbah. Come on, man.
I'm serious. I want to hear what you have to say about that.
All right. Okay. Here's a good point. And this relates to us as Black men. If you're going to charge us with responsibility for our communities, for our families, for our children, for our situations, then we also need the authority to implement the dictates of that responsibility. And what we seem to forget, that this white American society has stripped Black men in general of authority, right? Through their legal systems, right? They have made it, go ahead and be a man, I got something for you. And a lot of the women, unfortunately, will use that to take authority away from the Black man, right? I've seen it over and over and over and over again. But then the man wants to be responsible. Some men, I'm not saying all, but a lot of men want to be responsible, but they know they don't have the authority, to implement that responsibility. So I think that is extremely important. I think that's very important. The aspect of, listen, you want me to be responsible? Okay, I need the authority. And you have to give that as a Black woman, because white society is not giving a Black man no authority. You have to say, you know what? Let me step back. My man is in authority. Because the system wants you to belittle his authority just as it belittles his authority. And that's a fact in our society. That was my point about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things too, what about accepted authority, is that we have to realize that authority doesn't mean that everything is going to go like everything's going to have a storybook ending. And I think that's what sometimes we forget. When you have to do things in an authoritative position, it ain't going to be pretty, and this is what Imam Dawood was alluding to earlier. Like, sometimes the stuff that men have to do is not going to be according to how a woman has perfected in her mind, or how, it's going to have a great ending and it's going to have a storyline. No, it's ugly sometimes, but that's what makes men. Sometimes you got to make decisions that are not popular, that are going to make people, question you. It's going to make people want to not, trust your judgment, but it's a decision that has to be made. Sometimes you got to make what we call OG calls. You got to make OG calls, like regardless of who, what, where. I made the call. It's my decision, and that's my right as an authority, and you just have to live with it. And sometimes, people, people are so offensive and sensitive these days. If you say these things, it's like you get canceled. You know what I mean? No, it's my decision. You got to deal with it. Sometimes we got to tell people, listen, I say what I said. I meant what I meant, and that's what it is. Like, so I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? So we got to get back to that, just really respecting authority and trusting people's judgment that are over you, even if they do something that's not to your liking. There's another question that we want to go to. This one is important, small. Go ahead. You have something, man?
Okay, answer the question. Then we got to address this.
It says, why don't men want to be teachers? There's so few in the schools.
Well, as someone who went to school and got a degree in elementary education, you know, it's hard to maintain a family on a teacher salary. You know, teachers are overworked and underpaid. And I think this is one reason why many men don't go into education or go into the educational field and get out of teaching, because it's difficult. And you know, teachers barely make like a decent wage, to the point that in Michigan, many teachers have to go out and get second jobs, you know, just to like, you know, to be able to support their families. So you know, who are men folk. So I think that might be one of the reasons.
That's funny, because in New Jersey, especially in our area, that's not the issue. So that's because teachers are well paid in our area, extremely well paid, sometimes overpaid. But I'm saying, no, seriously, they're well paid, right? So maybe that, and there's still a lack of male teachers and black male teachers. So I mean, I think that needs to be considered where people are at. But that may be in some places, but we still have the same problem where teachers are highly paid, and we still have the same issue.
Yeah, well, and then
I know that for sure.
And then part of it is that it may be a societal issue that we need to, in our community, to lift up the nobility and the place that teachers have in our society, right? That might be that might also be a factor.
Yes.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Hey, but here's another thing that we might not be looking at, and I thought about this with careers in general, right? Unfortunately, especially in the inner cities, I can speak for that for sure. We weren't taught about career choices when we were young. Salaries, you know, what you want to go to, and being trained like that, right? I remember this one person, he was not from the inner city, but he mentioned about a young man who he grew up with. He said, this guy's a genius, but the only thing, he grew up in the projects, and I grew up in the suburbs with my mom and dad. He grew up with just his mother. And I was shown, my father was a police chief, and this one was a lawyer. So I was shown career choices where all he saw was the lowest job market. Maybe go get a job in the casino was the best that he was shown to me in our area. Maybe go working in a plant somewhere in other areas. We're not shown the different avenues by which you can have financial success. So maybe sometimes that plays a role in why Black youth are not selecting certain careers. Lack of access.
Then we also have to keep it a buck on this too, is that in the Black community in particular, with the issue of mass incarceration, our males get incarcerated at much greater rates than our women. And once you get a felony, in many states, you're not going to be able to get a job as a teacher in a school. Like that cancels you out right from the rip. So that may be another factor as well.
Okay, Imam Faheem, we're falling short. We gotta get on the bread. I don't know why we gotta keep getting on the bread every week, but we gotta do it.
So you saying the bread is rising in the oven, man, and then they
boy, at this
somebody
point,
listen. We at 370.
We started at the beginning cooking the bread.
Yeah, what was that bread like?
Take a long time.
What was that commercial, that bread? I think it was Sarah Lee, when they used to show the bacon and then they pour the butter down the middle, down the slit in the middle. You know, do you remember that commercial? Well, for those who don't remember, it's time to put that butter on that bread. You know, the loaf is baked. You know, we're at 370. We need $130 to at least reach our goal. You know, so somebody go ahead and drop this food for me, man. Put that butter on that bread, man.
we can't leave until we get the bread.
We need that bread.
And here's the thing with that. I say this, right? If we're ever going to be taken seriously as a people, we have to take on our aspects. You can't talk about responsibility, then we have an agreement and you don't feel you fulfill your part, right? I'm telling you, we do this for free. All these classes are free. Everyone knows. Imam Dawood knows I get paid for teaching, right? And pay good to teach, right? The things I'm giving for free, I get paid for it handsomely. But I give it to our people, to our communities for free. For 2 hours for me to go teach, it's compensated well. We don't need to be too explicit, right?
Expenses and everything covered.
Expenses and everything, right? But you get it for free. And I put more energy, as well as we do, in what I do for you, normally in energy and time, because of its importance, than I would do for a regular lesson, right? And I know my own family, if I'm late, they're like, you got to hurry up. You got to get online. Okay, because I made a commitment to you to do it. Well, likewise, you made a commitment to us to support and to help and to build. You got to do your part, right?
Come on, man. A lot of y'all got multiple. Y'all got multiple.
To voluntarily work hard, it should be fair for you to voluntarily work hard as well.
Come on, a lot of y'all got multiple loaves in the bread box, different brands. You got the 12 oat grain, you got 100% wheat, you got rye. We only ask you for a couple crumbs. You know what I mean? This little punk behind $10 we ask you for. Go ahead and drop that bread, man. Stop playing, you know?
And I don't mind having these conversations, right? Because I know it is necessary to have these conversations if we're going to get us to do something. If not, we're not gonna sustain ourselves, right? And that's something we got to learn in our communities, that's a must. We have some commitments that we make, we got to fulfill them, right? Can't be just rap. We like to talk, but when it comes to the work part, you know, it's all, you know, just I can't, but I can talk. I can shoot my stuff, but I can't work. And we got to get out of that, right?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Going back to the teachers thing.
Can I share this with you real quick? So Tahira, she said, I have to sell a lot of jewels this week to help out. Commission is crazy. In Beirut, they were fundraising and a community in Beirut. They was fundraising for their mission, for their work. The women gave 25 kilos of jewelry, gold. Did you hear what I just said? 25 kilos of gold jewelry. They donated it. And they've built schools, institutions, nice radio stations, TV stations, because they was committed, right? We live in a world that it costs to do what we do. It's not free. Free is not free. I keep telling us that. Free, somebody is paying, even if it ain't you. It's not free. Trust me, somebody is paying for it. One way or the other. If it's physical labor or it's financial commitments, somebody is paying. Free's never free. Trust me, it's never free. So even if you think you got it for free, somebody paid and you owe them a debt. At least show some gratitude. All right, that was my encouraging push.
25 kilos. Woo! MashaAllah. Yeah, I think alhamdulillah we reached our goal.
Nah, we ain't reached it yet. That's
We
a
didn't
fact.
reach it yet?
I
Okay,
don't see nothing.
okay, we got
I see pledges. Pledges don't mean anything to me until
nah.
I see it come through. I ain't pledged 5,000.
Pledges is that little tie on the bread bag.
Heck no.
No, take that plastic thing off, man.
When we
Take
get
that
an
bread
official-
out and
when
put
we
a
get an
knot,
official account
put a
that
knot
is
back in the
in
bag.
account,
Throw that little thing away, put a knot back in the bag. Mashallah.
you can't stand up on me and grandstand. Hey, I put up $100. I didn't see it.
Mashallah.
All right.
Yeah, you know,
reached the 510. May Allah reward you. Please, we love you all. I hope you, I know sometimes we could be kind of over the edge, but you know, one of my sheikhs, he said something. He said that we have to travel the path of our predecessors in the language of our present. Wow. We have to travel the path of our predecessors in the language of our present. So this is the language of us.
That's something we should put up. Yeah, and I also wanted to, when you talk about sometimes when we generalize, you know, we're speaking from our experiences, not to undermine anybody else's. So if I've ever done it, and I know I have, you know, I like to, I apologize. I just speak from my experience, because I had it rough because had I not had street stripes, they would have threw me out because I was light skinned. They always wrestle with that I wasn't black enough. Okay, I'm gonna show you what black is when I punch you in your mouth, because I ain't no punk. You know what I mean? You keep listening to that narrative about light skin being soft. You tell them, Imam Dawood, you know what I mean? Keep listening to that narrative if you want. You're gonna run into a problem. This ain't no Drake. This ain't Drake over here. So, but alhamdulillah, sometimes we, one of our biggest assets is to learn as we go. So as much as we do teaching and, instruction and educating, we're also learning as well. So we don't want anybody to think that we're undermining their experiences, but we just try to speak from ours, and I think that's what makes this program very unique, is that we just keep it 100. There's no pretension, only Imam Amin is the one talking with an accent,
Hey, I'm sorry.
And my teachers used to say,
listen, my sheikh gave me an ijazah. You hang around people, you love them, you pick up their stuff. I can't.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
I have some people that I love so much that have changed my life, that everything about them I love. The way they talk, the way they walk, the way they go to the bathroom. I like it, honestly. Because they're example in everything. Even the way they go to the bathroom would tell me how to go to the bathroom properly, right? We, in our culture, we haven't met people like that. Like, we unfortunately, there was the time, like Imam Dawood said, when the little shorty couldn't wait to be around his dad, right? Or his grandpa or uncle, or the dude in the street. He want to be like,
or the old heads. We become the old heads,
right? We didn't lose that with our teachers. We ain't lose it. Like, it's my teachers today. When I'm in their company, man, I'm a different person, totally, right? And that's out of reverence and respect, what I learned, right? But then when I'm hanging around you jokers, I can be myself.
You turn to Roscoe Jenkins. Roscoe Jenkins, come on home, man.
That's right. I flip it.
We got one more question. I don't know. We want to take it.
Wait a minute. So the sheikh said, you have ijazah to emulate me 100%.
Alhamdulillah.
In my walking, in my talking, in my eating, you have ijazah in every aspect. Right? There you go. Talk about it, Dawood. You see that beautiful book?
The chapter right there, just what Imam Amin is talking about, that's the part of the Futuwwah and raising males in the spiritual and the sacred manhood. It's a chapter I wrote about this, about deference towards scholars and spiritual mentors. This is so important and very important. what Imam Amin was talking about, and there's a chapter on the book that specifically talks about that subject.
And you know something, really, one of the things that I would love to see in the Black community, right? Honestly, it means so much to me, right? I'm sorry, I put up Fahad's thing. I would love to see real mentorship, right? From the Islamic perspective, where we see somebody, this is the most painful thing for me in the Black Muslim community. We don't have no real respect for our elders. I'm talking about respect in the Islamic sense, because the Islamic sense of respect and reverence for your elders and your shuyukh really is a whole different look all around the world, not just in the Arab world, in the African. You know, you've been to Africa. Like, it's a whole different level of respect. Imam Naeem put up a video. I don't know who that man was, the elder that he was hugging. He took them to visit. If you saw just the embrace between Imam Naeem and that elder sheikh, the elder man, it had a whole different context, right? And you saw how everybody sat around that elder African sheikh in the Gambia. It's online. Go look at it. Just look at the interaction. You see how they're sitting there. He's in his own chair out front. It's a level of respect. We lost that in our communities, almost as if it don't exist, right? We're not equal, right? Like, there is some hierarchy here, some authority here. And we've lost that. And we need to instill that in our youth, that, listen, so-and-so is the sheikh, right? So-and-so is the sheikh. So-and-so, and the sheikh always don't mean the scholar. It means the elder, right? You should have like a certain level of difference, as you said. My thoughts.
We have one last question. I don't know if you want to entertain it. Well,
take it.
There was two. Well, first one, this is a quick one. Would you say that this book is good for grown brothers in the deen?
Most definitely. And part of this aspect of Futuwwah is that we as older men, we all need reminders. And also, just to keep it a buck, that some of us who are older, we never had proper rearing or were never showed this. So it's hard. It's hard to give someone some water to drink when your own cup is empty, right? So, you know, there needs to be refreshers for the adults, and but also there needs to be maybe some introduction, and hence this leads me a good segue that next month in July, inshallah, we're having weekend programs. I'm going to be with our beloved Imam Hamza Abdul Malik in Memphis on July 14th, 15th, and 16th, where we're going over Futuwwah. And so we'll be having weekend programs. And part of it is also talking with parents. So we're going to have something for the young males, but we're also going to be speaking with the parents and community gatherings. And then July 29th and 30th, I'll be down there with my our brother, Imam Suleiman Hamid, down in Atlanta, right? So, yes, part of the address and part of the instruction is towards, addressing the adults and helping the men folk in particular. And, you know, in this endeavor, what we do, and when we begin, similarly to the dua or the niyyah that Imam al-Haddad, rahmatullahi alayh, would make in regards to opening up class sessions is that, you know, we start with the niyyah of to teach and to learn and to give benefit and to receive benefit, right? So this is the way that we that we address it. And even myself, as being a teacher, when I go into gatherings, I gain benefit. Number one, just in reviewing my notes and reviewing material, but also number two, I gain benefit from comments and also suggestions from the people in the Majlis, right? So it's a level of like reciprocity. But of course, this is for the adult men as well, the book.
Alhamdulillah. We got one last question. I don't know if you want to tackle it before we go. And this is directed to the Imam. It says, do you believe homeschooling could be a solution as well as instead of sending them to public school systems or any type of schooling ran by white supremacists?
Yeah, I'm in favor of homeschooling as long as there are some planned activities around other young males, and that there's also a male role model who's involved in the tarbiyah and actually being an instructor. Yes, so if it's just a situation of a mother homeschooling the son alone and just being around their mom or being up in the house and not being around structured activities where there's males or male only activities, and I would lean not in favor of that. But yes, I'm a supporter of homeschooling, especially in public schools now where they are teaching immorality under the cloak of diversity and inclusion. Like they're introducing sexuality and deviance to children as young as elementary school these days, and that's really dejalic.
Alhamdulillah. So may Allah give us a tawfiq in launching some of the much needed programs that we need, especially concentrating on males. I would love to see something similar to what Dr. Umar Johnson was trying to, do with an all boys academy. I would love to see something like that, where we're teaching, Rujula and Futuwwah, teaching them how to work with their hands and martial arts and all of the sciences, and not just secular science, but Islamic sciences, where we're producing like what they call Renaissance men. I mean, boys that are well-mannered, behaved, they're courageous, they're warriors, and they're gentle, they're in tune with their emotions, and what the stuff that we're looking for. Because even with all this confusion about gender and equality and all this nonsense, people still like a hard-nosed man. Like a hard-nosed man, that's to the grind, he's not overbearing, but he's a man, you know what I mean? And that's one of the biggest crises in this country is the lack of that kind of manhood. So we ask Allah to restore it for us. I mean, let's make sure 3453 family that we make Imam Dawood go platinum in the hood, so make sure that we purchase his book in Massey. If you haven't bought one, make sure you purchase. If you already purchased, purchase another one, send it as a gift, inshallah ta'ala, and, so, because when he's able to, sell his book, then it gives him room to write another book. He already has a couple books on deck, inshallah, that we benefit from immensely. And so help him continue to do his work, inshallah ta'ala.
If Imam Dawood, if you can quickly, briefly, because sometimes we don't understand the importance of what goes in the writing process and why it's important to support in terms of buying books and not PDFing you or all that. What is going into that really should encourage us to support it? What goes into it?
What goes into writing a book such as this one? Number one, takes years of study, devoting time, number one. Number two is speaking with one's teachers, not only remotely, but also in person, which requires travel, even has included travel outside of the country, and that costs money. And by the way, I don't get any like book deals. I'm getting like a plug or money up front. Like this is like from my own pocket. Then purchasing the actual books for the references to have like in my library, and then the actual time it takes to write, and then actually going back and forth with the editor both on editing, not just editing the content or looking at the content of like checking the content, was called peer review, but also editing for the grammar, then getting it to a typesetter, looking at the format, reading it over and over to make sure that, inshallah, there's no informational or grammatical errors. So we're talking about hours upon hours, sweat equity, and money that is put up front. And by the way, writing these books is not like, we get paid or like making like bank off of like writing these books. It's not like a book deal from a major publisher. These books and these writings are an act of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the community. And then number two, it's a hope that this is a level of beneficial knowledge that, when I'm in the cemetery, that inshallah there's people who will read it and pass it on so I can get some of the reward for it when I'm in my qabr. So that's the reality, my brothers and sisters. It's we're your imams, especially your black imams, we're not getting wealthy like Reverend Chicken Wing or Creflo Dollar, and riding around, in Rolls Royces and trying to get private jets. That's not the case. Joel Osteen, that's not the case at all.
It would be nice though, right?
It would be nice to have a mega masjid, man, to come floating in.
Hey, listen, don't undermine that. It would be nice. I mean, really, like,
yeah. We're not striving. We're not trying to get that, but it would be nice. It would be nice to come for Jummah Friday, man, floating in on the with a cape down at the ceiling, some smoke screens and all that. That would be nice.
All right, Imam, you want to close it out with dua?
اللهم لك الحمد فصل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم تسليما كثيرا دائما أبدا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. We ask you, Ya Allah, to make us and our young men the men of Futuwwah and Rujula, Ya Allah. We ask you, Ya Allah, to protect the women folk of our community, Ya Allah. We ask you, Ya Allah, to alleviate the suffering of the ummah of Sayyidina Rasulillahi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask you, Ya Allah, Ya Rabbil Alameen, to grant us all the intercession of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. We ask you, Ya Allah, all of this by the right of Al-Habib Al-Mustafa Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathiran da'iman abada. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
بارك الله بكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Please get your copy of the book, inshallah, so that we can continue to support our brother Imam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.